If I told you that the most celebrated decision in a man's life, having children, is also the decision that weakens him the fastest, would you dare to keep listening? Society promises that children will bring happiness, meaning, and fulfillment. But Machiavelli never believed in beautiful promises. He believed only in outcomes, and the outcome is this. Millions of men have willingly bound their own hands with responsibility, traded freedom for hollow praise, and then called it maturity. Schopenhauer saw an even more ruthless truth. Having children does not create happiness, it multiplies suffering. Machiavelli goes straight to the fatal weakness. Every child is a lever of power turned against you. When you have something to lose, you become easy to control. When you carry responsibility, you are no longer free to act. This video is not for those seeking comfort. It is for those with the courage to ask, does this decision make me stronger or weaker? If you want to understand how instinct, society, and power manipulate the greatest choices of your life, this video may ensure that you never look at having children the same way again. Number 1. Having children does not create happiness. It creates suffering. Having children is often told as a modern fairy tale, children's laughter, meaning complete happiness. But neither Schopenhauer nor Machiavelli believed in fairy tales. Schopenhauer looked directly at the nature of existence and said something few dare to accept. Life, in itself, is suffering. Pleasure is not a lasting reward, but merely a momentary easing of an ever-present pain. From this perspective, having children is not giving happiness, but imposing consciousness, a consciousness forced to bear illness, anxiety, disappointment, aging, and death. You do not merely create a being, you create a life condemned to endure. Machiavelli does not dispute Schopenhauer. He places that truth on the scale of power. If life is already suffering, then having children is a decision that doubles the risk, not only for the child, but for you. When you have children, you have something to lose. When you have something to lose, you become vulnerable to control. Responsibility turns into chains, and love, however genuine, becomes the anchor through which society, work, and obligation pull you into a safe orbit. In Machiavelli's world, where actions are measured by consequences, having children does not make you stronger. It makes you so cautious that you become passive. Look directly at it. The child you love will grow up in a world that shows no mercy. They will learn how to fail before they learn how to win, learn loss before understanding value, learn fear before knowing hope. Schopenhauer called this the structure of existence. Machiavelli called it an unavoidable cost. You may call the moment you hold your child happiness, but that happiness exists like a light in the night, bright, brief, and incapable of erasing the surrounding darkness. And for you, the father, the mother, every small joy comes with a greater fear. Freedom is exchanged for stability, ambition is replaced by safety, and choice is narrowed by responsibility. This is not an indictment of love, it is an honest accounting. Schopenhauer warned that we often mistake the absence of pain for happiness. Machiavelli adds, we often mistake praise for strength. True motivation does not come from fleeing suffering through comforting stories. It comes from lucidity in decision-making. If having children does not create lasting happiness, but merely multiplies the burden of consciousness, then the question is not, is this beautiful, but does this make me stronger or weaker? Only by daring to face that truth do you earn the right to choose, not by instinct, not by pressure, but by reason and long-term vision. Number 2. Love and the desire to become a parent are an illusion of the species. Love is often praised as the pinnacle of personal freedom. You love because you want to. You have children because you choose to. But Schopenhauer and Machiavelli both saw the deadly blind spot in that belief. Schopenhauer called romantic love the illusion of the species, a refined mechanism of nature that makes individuals believe they are pursuing their own happiness, while in reality serving a single objective: the preservation of life. Human beings think they are choosing, but that choice has already been written into instinct. Machiavelli would not object. He would simply coldly dissect the consequence. When you believe you are free but are in fact being guided, you are the easiest target to manipulate. In politics, the dangerous man is not the one who is forced, but the one who voluntarily walks into the trap and calls it love. Romantic love clouds reason, creates a sense of urgency, promises a future of us, and in that very moment, autonomy begins to slip from your grasp. Observe how the story is told: meeting, attraction, attachment, marriage, children. A perfect straight line, repeated by society until it becomes natural. But Machiavelli understood that what is considered most natural is often what has been most carefully trained. When you are swept up in emotion, you ask fewer questions. When you ask fewer questions, you more readily accept long-term responsibility without assessing the price in power that must be paid. Schopenhauer said, "Nature achieves its ends through illusion." Machiavelli adds, "Power achieves its ends through those who believe in illusion." The desire to become a parent, seen in this light, is no longer a sacred calling, but a drive activated at precisely the right moment, when you are intoxicated, when you fear loss, when you want to prove your worth, and then you sign an agreement with no exit clause. The danger does not lie in loving. It lies in confusing emotion with strategic decision-making. A decision that alters the entire structure of life, finances, time, risk, choice, is made in a state of emotional intensity. In Machiavelli's world, this is a fundamental error. No one makes the most important decision of their life while being led by illusion. True motivation does not come from denying love, but from reclaiming the power of choice. When you understand that the desire to have children may be the voice of instinct rather than reason, you do not become cold, you become lucid. And lucidity is the precondition of freedom. Only by seeing through the illusion of the species can you ask the question Machiavelli always places first. Who is controlling this decision, me or the invisible forces that benefit from it? Number 3. Family is not the purpose of life, but a trade-off of freedom. Family is often exalted as the ultimate destination of a man's life. A wife, children, responsibility, meaning. But Schopenhauer and Machiavelli both perceived a paradox society deliberately conceals. Family is not life's purpose, but a trade-off, and the price paid is freedom. The modern father often mistakes burden for meaning, believing that more obligation equals greater maturity, that deeper constraint equals greater respectability. In truth, this is the moment when the individual begins to dissolve. Schopenhauer was blunt. Freedom and parenthood are opposing concepts. When you take responsibility for another consciousness, you no longer belong to yourself. Each decision ceases to be, "What do I want?" and becomes, "Is this safe for the family?" Freedom, the condition that allows human beings to experiment, to take risks, to fail, and to grow, is replaced by permanent responsibility. And responsibility, even when cloaked in moral language, remains a form of bondage with no escape. Machiavelli goes further. He does not ask whether this is noble. He asks whether it makes you stronger or weaker. In the world of power, a free man is one who can maneuver, withdraw, and strike when necessary. A man bound by family obligation is one who no longer possesses maximum choice. Individual character is replaced by social roles: a good father, the provider, the responsible man. These praise titles are, in reality, labels that allow society to manage you more easily. The individual life is sacrificed to duty. This is not a rare tragedy, but the norm. Dreams are postponed indefinitely, risk is avoided, ambition is adjusted to be appropriate. The father learns to take pride in endurance and calls the contraction of life maturity. Machiavelli would say, "The moment you begin to call loss a virtue, you have been domesticated." This is not an attack on familial love, but a warning about the price of power. When you become indispensable to others, you also become most vulnerable. You gain weaknesses that can be threatened, possessions that can be taken, fears that can be exploited. Responsibility does not merely consume time and energy, it reshapes your entire life strategy towards safety, predictability, and low risk, precisely the kind of person social order desires. True motivation does not come from chasing celebrated roles. It comes from lucidity in recognizing what you are trading away. If family demands that you sacrifice freedom, individuality, and the power of choice, then Machiavelli's question still echoes, cold and uncompromising. Are you living your own life, or fulfilling a role that was written in advance? Only by daring to face that question do you truly gain the freedom to choose, rather than taking pride in invisible chains. Number 4. Legacy is an illusion. Legacy is one of the most seductive promises society whispers into a man's ear. Have children, and you will not disappear. You will be continued, remembered, immortalized through your own flesh and blood. But Schopenhauer called this an illusion, and Machiavelli saw it as a dangerous self-deception because it causes people to invest their entire lives in something beyond their control. The cold truth is this: children are not born to fulfill your dreams. They do not carry the mission of inheriting ideals as you imagine. They have their own lives, their own ambitions, and their own fears. They may love you, but they may also forget you. They may be grateful, but they may also be indifferent or resentful. Schopenhauer understood this early on. Each individual is only a temporary manifestation of the will to live, arriving and departing, with no one carrying anyone else's legacy beyond a fleeting historical moment. Machiavelli would ask an even more ruthless question: why would you place your hope of immortality in the hands of others? In politics, that is a strategic error. Power endures only when you hold it directly, not when you entrust it to an uncertain future. When you have children in order to leave a mark, you gamble your identity on variables you cannot predict. And when that identity fails, you accept a bitter contraction. From a person with dreams, capacity, and ambition, you become merely someone's father. This is the most subtle cost of the legacy illusion. Identity is replaced by role. Personal achievement is pushed aside because the children matter most. Intellectual pursuit is interrupted because family comes first. Gradually, everything you once were dissolves into a title praised by society. But Machiavelli knew that praise is not power. It is merely the reward offered so that you will accept a smaller position. True legacy does not function this way. It does not flow through bloodlines. It spreads through ideas. History does not remember those who gave birth to someone, but those who created something. Ideas change how people think. Works open new possibilities. Intellectual contribution leaves a mark that transcends time, independent of whether anyone carries your name. Machiavelli survived across centuries not because he had children, but because he left behind a way of seeing the world. True motivation does not come from the fear of being forgotten. It comes from deliberate action to become memorable. If you want a legacy, build something that does not require bloodline to survive. Because, as Machiavelli would say, the most durable power is power that does not depend on the loyalty of others, and the most enduring legacy is one that does not need heirs in order to live on. Number 5. Having children is economic and philosophical enslavement. Having children is rarely viewed as an economic and philosophical decision. It is usually wrapped in emotion, morality, and responsibility. But Machiavelli never judged actions by feeling. He judged them by their consequences for power. And when examined directly, having children is not merely a commitment of love, it is a form of long-term enslavement, subtle and socially legitimized. First comes economic enslavement. Children create financial dependency that lasts for decades. Not a few decisions, but an entire life trajectory. Your income no longer serves to accumulate power or expand choice, but to maintain stability. Every plan must be safe. Every risk must be responsible. Schopenhauer called this the tragedy of the will. We pursue life so completely that it binds us. Machiavelli saw it more clearly. When your finances are fixed, you have disarmed yourself strategically. Following this is the loss of the ability to change direction in life. You cannot relocate easily because of schools, environment, and family. You cannot change careers boldly because income must remain stable. You cannot risk entrepreneurship because others depend on you. This is the freezing of choice path dependency, where every past decision locks future decisions into place. Machiavelli understood that power does not come from staying on the right path, but from the ability to change paths when necessary. A man who cannot change direction is a man who has already been bound. By contrast, optionality, the capacity for flexibility, is an invisible yet supreme asset. Those who do not have children retain the ability to respond quickly to opportunity, escape adverse situations, and restructure their lives when new information emerges. Schopenhauer regarded this as the foundation of freedom and intellect. When you are not bound, you can observe the world more clearly, with fewer illusions. Machiavelli would state it plainly: whoever has more options is stronger. The danger lies in the fact that society glorifies this form of enslavement as virtue. The bound father is called responsible. The exhausted mother is called nobly self-sacrificing. But in politics, Machiavelli warned that morality is often used to conceal the stripping away of power. When you accept a life in which choices are frozen, you become easy to manage, predictable, controllable, and unlikely to resist. True motivation does not lie in enduring more, but in preserving the power of choice for as long as possible. Having children, within this analytical frame, is not merely a personal decision, it is a comprehensive structure of constraint. If freedom is the ability to say yes to opportunity and no to obligation, then enslavement is the condition in which you no longer have the right to say no. And Machiavelli would conclude coldly: the man who loses the power of choice has removed himself from the game of power, no matter how much praise society bestows upon him. Number 6. Not having children is an act of compassion. Not having children is often burdened with a heavy label: selfishness. But Schopenhauer and Machiavelli both reframe the issue in a way that destabilizes that prejudice. If existence, when examined honestly, contains more suffering than pleasure, then the act of not creating a new existence is not an evasion of responsibility, it is a conscious moral choice. Schopenhauer called this lucid compassion, refusing to multiply the suffering that is already the structure of life. Machiavelli would not speak in the language of mercy. He would ask, who benefits from your having children? If the answer is not the child because it was never asked, then the beneficiaries are instinct and the system. In the world of power, the most humane action is sometimes inaction. Not having children, in this frame, is a refusal to participate in a chain of consequences you already know will include illness, anxiety, disappointment, aging, and death. This is not coldness, it is the courage to face reality directly. Not multiplying suffering, this is the core point. Every new consciousness is a new center of pain. Schopenhauer was explicit. Pleasure is only a momentary reduction of pain. Suffering is the baseline. When you do not have children, you are not taking happiness away from anyone. You are avoiding the creation of a subject that would be forced to endure. Machiavelli, with his realism, understood that the most responsible choices rarely bring social glory. They require you to accept being misunderstood. Refusing to serve the blindness of the will to live, this is the transition from instinct to consciousness. Instinct wants continuation, multiplication, immortality through bloodlines. Consciousness asks, what is the cost? Machiavelli always stood with those who ask questions before acting. For the most dangerous person is not the evil one, but the one who acts out of inertia and calls it morality. Not having children cuts that inertia, it reclaims choice from instinct. Choosing consciousness over instinct, this is the core motivation. Motivation is not always about doing more, creating more, expanding. Sometimes, motivation is knowing when to stop, knowing that true power does not lie in the ability to create life, but in the capacity to take responsibility for consequences one fully understands. Machiavelli would say, the most durable power is power that does not need display. The most durable compassion is compassion that does not need praise. Society may call you selfish, but Machiavelli warned long ago, society often calls selfish anyone who does not serve its interests. When you do not have children, you refuse to supply the system with additional resources, labor, taxes, obedience. It is a silent political choice, but a powerful one. Ultimately, not having children is not a rejection of life. It is respect for life taken so seriously that one refuses to impose it unconsciously. It is quiet compassion, a choice made against instinct, and a decision grounded in reason, what Machiavelli always regarded as the foundation of genuine freedom. Number 7. Society needs you to have children, but philosophy does not. Society always tells us a familiar story. Having children is natural, it is responsibility, it is a duty to the shared future. But Machiavelli never trusted stories told in the name of the common good. He asked the question philosophy is always compelled to ask, who benefits from this pressure? And when you look closely, the answer becomes coldly clear. Society needs you to have children, but philosophy does not. Schopenhauer saw the suffering inherent in existence. Machiavelli saw the operating structure of systems. Society needs new generations to keep the machinery running, workers to produce, taxpayers to fund the apparatus, consumers to sustain growth. Pressure to reproduce, therefore, is not a moral invitation, it is a survival requirement of the system. Individuals are encouraged to sacrifice themselves, time, freedom, choice, in the name of collective stability. But Machiavelli warned, when the common good consistently demands individual sacrifice, power has already been distributed in one direction. Those who have children because everyone does it believe they are choosing. In reality, they are executing a script. They become replicas of previous generations, repeating decisions never tested by reason. Machiavelli would call this a failure of strategic thinking. When you do what is most obvious, you rarely do what is wisest. For what is obvious is usually designed to serve order, not to maximize individual freedom. Philosophy stands on the opposite side. It does not need you to produce more people. It needs you to understand. It does not demand biological continuation. It demands originality of consciousness. Schopenhauer said that much of human suffering comes from pursuing goals that are not truly one's own. Machiavelli adds, much of a system's power comes from making individuals believe their choices are free, when in fact they have already been shaped in advance. Observe how the pressure operates. Praise for the stable, admiration for the responsible, suspicion toward those who do not have children. This is not morality. It is a technique of governance. People with families tend to take fewer risks, rebel less, and are more predictable. They have more to lose, and therefore comply more easily. Machiavelli understood that a durable order does not require violence once obligation is in place. True motivation does not come from blending into the crowd. It comes from the courage to step aside and ask uncomfortable questions. Do I truly want this? Who does this serve? What is the price in power? Philosophy does not command you not to have children. It gives you the capacity not to be ruled by the command of the majority, and that is freedom at its highest level. In the end, society will always need you to do what it needs. But Machiavelli reminds you, the wise man is the one who can distinguish the needs of the system from his own interests. When you refuse to have children simply because everyone does it, you are not betraying society. You are reclaiming ownership of your decision. And in the world of power, there is no motivation stronger than living as a conscious individual rather than as a smoothly functioning cog. If you have made it this far, it means you have done something rare. You have dared to question what society treats as self-evident. Schopenhauer shows you the harsh nature of existence. Machiavelli forces you to confront the unavoidable question: which decisions make you stronger and which make you controllable? This video does not tell you what you must do. It merely returns to you something many people lose very early in life: the power of conscious choice. In Machiavelli's world, the most dangerous person is not the cruel one, but the one who lives by inertia and calls it morality. The strong person is the one who understands the cost of every choice and is willing to pay the price for freedom rather than trade it for praise. If you choose to have children, choose with reason, not illusion. If you choose not to, choose with courage, not fear. Whatever your choice, do not let it be the product of social pressure. If you want to continue exploring power, hidden motives, and uncomfortable but necessary truths to take control of your life, press like and subscribe. Comment below. The biggest decision of your life, did you truly choose it, or are you simply repeating it? See you in the next video.